KNE.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTimitRadio.com.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTimitRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Alrighty. Good morning to wherever you are. Well, it's morning here in this side of the concept, which we call what is commonly called the United States. But wherever you are in this country and around the world, we are TalkTimitRadio.com, and we go where you go, the world's greatest radio. You are now in touch with the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio, the way it should be heard. Today being Wednesday, the 13th of March, 2019, and today's topic is going to be evidence. Evidence in the system of white supremacy, racism. Now, to get in contact with the show, you need to call 1-877-932-9766. You can do that. You can also, excuse me, you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. If you would like to view the program as we are doing it live, all you have to do is go to the YouTube channel, type in the word Talktainment, and then type in the word radio, and then scroll down to Talktainment number 2, and you are there. And while you're there, hit the subscribe and like button. But we would prefer that you go to the TalkTimitRadio.com homepage and just simply hit Listen Live, which is at the top of your screen on the right-hand side, and you're there. Hit the subscribe and like button there. And if you would like, you could do a replay of this whole show by going to Facebook.com/Talktainment, and there you go. Okay, evidence. We got that topic from one of our, I want to say callers, but one of our people who wrote in and wanted to know about evidence. I'll ask his question, but as we are learning the code, everything is codified. What does that mean? What does evidence mean, particularly in the system of racism and white supremacy? Let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and as our custom is, Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you? Hello? Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you this morning? Okay.
I can vaguely hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. We are discussing, or have opened up our discussion today on the subject of evidence, in particular evidence in the system of racism and white supremacy. As I introduced you to some and presented you to others, evidence. Mr. Fuller, what is evidence, and what does evidence mean in the system of white supremacy racism?
Well, I don't have it in the word guide, what evidence is, but in answer to the second question, what is it in the system of racism, it's whatever the white supremacists say that it is. And that's been proven over and over again. What is evidence and what is not. There's a saying that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And somebody said that years ago, but what makes it valid or invalid depends on, in a system dominated by racism, what people who believe in racism say that it is or what it isn't, and who it applies to, and when and under what circumstance. They determine that. The prison masters,
Mm-hmm. Okay. Pardon me. I took the liberty to, because I thought that you would go in that direction to find out what the definition of evidence is. The available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true or valid. Well, following the code, we wanted to know, well, wait a minute, what do you mean by preposition? Which simply means a statement or assertion of judgment or fact that expresses an opinion. And what does that mean? Exertion, a confident, forceful statement of fact. Well, if the white supremacists control that, does that mean that what they say is fact?
Yes, in answer to the question, what truth is. Evidence is supposed to be based on truth. So the white supremacists determine what truth is.
Okay.
If they say that something is true, then as the prison masters of their victims, because they have made their victims prisoners of war, so the reality of anything is determined, or the decisions made about it is up to the prison masters.
Yes.
So the prisoners of war are the non-white people of the planet in the system of white supremacy. So whatever the white supremacists, racist man and racist woman, say that is evidence or isn't evidence, that's the most valid thing that you can go by, simply because they said, because I said so. Because that's all they really have to do. Because if anybody says, well, I don't agree with it, all they have to say is, you are my prisoner. I don't care what you agree with or disagree with, because you are my prisoner. And you don't decide anything about your fate or anything else. I decided. That's what racism means.
Okay. All righty. We're speaking of evidence. Remember, we're on this word thing. Evidence in the system of racism, white supremacy. We have a caller, line one. You're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Yes. Hello. It's Mr. Walker calling out of Pennsylvania. Mr. Bobby, hello. Mr. Fuller, hello. Mr. Bobby, I was wondering if I could ask one question and also insert two VGQs, if that's possible.
If you do it quickly, because there's so many people that want to get in, I'm already backed up on Gmails.
Yes, so I'll be very brief. One question is what's evidence if white supremacy exists? Could evidence be that a lot of non-white people have to bury their children? Because I noticed that a lot of non-white people's children die or suffer unfortunate deaths under white supremacy before their predecessors, their ancestors, and that's out of line. And two VGQs that I have, it's quotes from Marcus Garvey, and I'm reading out of a book titled Race First, written by Tony Martin. The first one is, what do I care about death and the cause of the redemption of Africa? I could die anywhere in the cause of liberty. A real man dies but once. A coward dies 1,000 times before his real death. So we want you to realize that life is not worth its salt, except you can live it for some purpose. And the noblest purpose for which to live is the emancipation of a race and the emancipation of posterity. That's one. And the second one is, history records that slaves, by virtue of their experiences and the knowledge gained in captivity in strange lands, have eventually become masters of themselves and in time enslaved others. Let us therefore use adversity as others have done. Take advantage of every opportunity. Where there is none, make it for yourself. And let history record that as we toiled laboriously and courageously, we worked to live gloriously. Thank you.
All righty. Okay, VGQ on the last one. Okay, I am going to go to Gmail to hone in on the subject matter today, evidence. This comes from Jason, and he says this, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, what evidence is there to prove racism, white supremacy was started by a person?
Well, I don't know of anything else that could have started it. I don't know of any elephants or squirrels or rabbits or reptiles of any type. I mean, I've never heard of that. I don't see how it could have been started by a leaf on a tree. So I just assumed that it started by a person that had the intent of starting a thing called racism. It had to be invented by a person because it would benefit a person, I believe. If it's not by a person, then the question is, if racism is not invented by a person or by people, then what or who invented racism? That's the question. So logically speaking, it seems like the evidence shows that racism was invented by people. It seems that way. May not be. I don't go any farther than that myself. I just assume. But if somebody says I have to show evidence, well, they can say that. But I've already made my conclusion that racism was invented by a person in a person's mind and by a committee, if you want to use that word, of persons. I don't think that a sidewalk invented racism. Mm-hmm. I don't think that a fence rail invented racism. I don't think that a cloud invented racism. But that's just my opinion.
Yes, sir. So as you presented facts you have discovered in your search, I'm asking, that a squirrel or fence or the air or none of these things could have, in your opinion, which you just stated, could have possibly invented the system of racism and white supremacy.
And that's my conclusion.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Based on, but others may come to another conclusion, and, well, whatever it is under the United Independent or under the VGQ system, if a person says, no, people didn't invent racism, racism was invented by a lampshade. Mm-hmm. Well, if a person wants to believe that, that's okay. Mm-hmm. But it's still, the question is whether or not racism should exist at all, mm-hmm. regardless of what invented it.
Regardless of what.
But I don't think that going around burning up lampshades or throwing them off a cliff will help the cause of eliminating racism. I don't believe that.
Okay. TalkTainmentRadio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. And I'm going to run three off for you right now. All in the Family, This is Libby, and New Money. Now, all these shows are exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com, and they're wonderful shows. You can't get these shows anywhere else. Our suggestion is this. Go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage, click on programs, and there is a list of all the programs that are currently on TalkTainmentRadio.com, and check them out. Check them out and see if there's something to your liking. With that, you can get the scheduled times and a little bit about the show host. All this from TalkTainmentRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And our topic today for these 2 hours is evidence. Evidence. And we've had Mr. Fuller discuss that briefly, and hopefully all the things that we say will be surrounding that. Let's go to the phone lines. And caller one. Okay. Line number one, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hello. This is Mr. Walker again out of Pennsylvania. I have a question about what I can do as an individual non-white person to better understand white supremacy and also understand what it is and how it works. Because that's like the main important topic that's like on my mind at the moment. And I would like Mr. Neely Fuller to kind of give me a little dialogue on that.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
Ask yourself each and every day, when you look at anything going on around you, ask, what is it that's going on around you? What controls whatever is going on around you in any area of activity? What do people do when you see people coming and going? You see people coming and going all the time. You say, what motivates them more than anything else? In every area of activity, economics, education. Just walk into a school and say, what do they teach here? Or do they teach anything here? Is this a school? And what is it set up for? And what is the ultimate result of what the people learn in this school? And who controls it? And do that in every area of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law. You walk into a courtroom. Who ultimately makes the decisions about what's going on in this courtroom? About who's guilty and who's not? And how the society is run? Who will be punished for doing what? And where and when? And what is the connection between this and this and this and this? Because everything is connected with something else. Make the connections between one thing and another. And then in politics, world politics, you study everything that's going on in the world. Just read the paper. Find out what's going on in the world. Who's doing what? Is somebody fighting somebody? Well, what is the fighting about? If someone is using a certain tool to do the fighting, whether it's a sword or a gun, look at the gun. Look at the gun. And say, where did that gun come from? Who makes the gun? Who has control over the shipment of the guns? And see into it who gets guns and who doesn't get them, and how, and who the guns are used against. Just question after question after question, and the answers will come to you if you want to understand racism, because since racism is the dominant political and religious force on the entire planet, all roads will lead to the white supremacists, because they control everything that non-white people do. So if you want to know, if you're sitting down eating a plate of food, just say, where does this food come from? And who is the master of who gets food and who doesn't? Who determines who's going to starve to death today and who is not? And the answers will come to you if you just keep asking questions. Because somewhere, somebody will answer, or you will find answers yourself. And that's in religion, sex, war, all of the areas of activity. What the textbook for victims called the 9 major areas of activity. People are active all the time, all over the world. And you say, what motivates people to do what they're doing? All the ships that are sailing on the sea. Who determines who can stop at what port and drop off what? Who is the master of commerce? If I want to get money, who masters money? What kind of pictures are on the money? Of what people? What is the background of those people? How did they get what they got in order to have everybody trying to get the money? I understand in a place called Venezuela right now that the money is no good, no matter how much of it you have. People have stopped robbing banks. I just read that recently. On account of they say, what's the point in robbing the bank? And the money that you get out of the bank has no value. So even the bank robbers in Venezuela, I read, if I read it correctly, have stopped robbing banks. Because they say, the money's no good, people want food. No, they want real stuff. Money doesn't mean anything if the money's no good. If nobody will take it, if nobody's interested in it, they'd rather have food than have money, because they can't eat money. So you ask yourself, who controls money? Who controls food? Who controls Who controls the guns that robbers get when they rob somebody and try to take what somebody else has? Who controls that? And the answers will come to you. You want to study white supremacy? The evidence, since we're talking about that, seems to lead always to the white supremacists, to some white person, not all, but to some white person who believes in mistreating people based on color. They're the most powerful people on this planet called Earth, according to what? All of the evidence, if you dig deep enough.
Mm-hmm.
Ask enough questions.
Yes, sir. Okay, we are speaking of evidence. On this day, the 13th of March, 2019, we have a caller line 1. You're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question quickly, please?
Oh, yes. Good morning. Can I be heard?
Yes, I hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. I have two questions. My first question, Mr. Fuller, is that in the area of entertainment, which I would call media, there are a lot of non-white black people that are speaking about some form of compensation in the form of reparations. What I'm consistently seeing from everyone that is mentioning this topic, and I'm not going to criticize them because they are victims of racism, but there's one consistent theme, and that is they are never saying that the reason for this is white supremacy. They're either saying that it's because of slavery or Jim Crow, but they are not mentioning that this is because of the system of white supremacy, and they're never mentioning that people are still practicing racism against us now. Would you say that that's still just a form of confusion that the white supremacists are using to just keep black people rattled? And then I have confused, and then I have a second question.
Well, I'm not qualified to criticize anything in the VGQ. I'm not qualified to us victims guarantee qualification. A victim of racism is qualified to say anything about his or her victimization. Anything dealing with race, racism, or counter-racism. Every person of color is qualified to say anything about it because they are the victims. They can say anything they want to say about their victimization. So I cannot dictate to them and will not attempt to or even suggest that I am the leader of that because they are the leaders of what they say. Each individual person, they're qualified to do that simply by being victims. But I'm saying, if they don't want to use the term white supremacy, then that's their choice. I'm just saying that if you find out what racism is, and if there's anything connected with racism, plantation slavery, what they call the African slave trade, was certainly engineered and performed by people who are called white supremacists. I mean, when you can say it's slave owners, but the slavery was based on racism, based on mistreating people based on color, because that's what racism is. So if a person wants to say it in that manner, he or she can, or a person can say it in a more disguised manner if he or she chooses to do it. But you can ask them, a simple question is, ask anybody that's talking to you about racism, just ask them, what do they think racism is? And is racism and white supremacy one and the same? Because that's what I have written in my book. They're one and the same. It's no other form of racism. I mean, because you can't have two dominants at the same time. You either have white supremacy or you don't.
Okay. What is your second question, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Bobby. My second question is that I heard a presidential candidate, suspected racist, Marianne Williamson, white female, and she was mentioning that she is for, quote-unquote, reparations or compensation. But one of the things that I found very troubling in her interview, Mr. Fuller, was that she specifically told black people that they need to not stop being so angry and that love will win. And in this system, would I consider what she said to black people an act of racism? That's my question, because I don't think that that's accurate. Because suspected racists do not react to us with passivity or being very meek towards us, but they want us to react to them in a very meek and cowardly way. And I would just, my question to Mr. Fuller is that since she's suspected to be a racist, is that an act of racism on her part by possibly being deceptive?
Okay. Is this a white lady?
Yes, sir.
Oh, and she said what?
She said that black people need to love more and to stop being so angry at racism. Those were her specific words.
No, that calls for more questions. Like codification is all about endless. I'm going to underline that. Endless, open-ended, you might say, if you want to use that expression. Questions and answers. When she makes a statement like that, you go into the question mode and stay there. One question right after another. Now, the first thing I understand that she said was black people should love. And the first thing you want, what's the definition of love? Because in the compensatory word guide, love and justice are one and the same. They're one and the same. There's no other form of love other than justice. That what they call romantic love and all like that, that's romance in the way of the Romans. That's just, that's some type of going through some type of act. I mean, like actors on a stage. And that's an emotional thing. But what you might call real love, in my opinion, and what I put in the word guide, is synonymous with justice. So the definition for love and the definition for justice are one and the same. So what's the definition of justice? The compensatory definition. Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Those two components. Now you got love. But the lady who was talking might have her own definition of love. So you always want the definition of words. She used the word love. So you want to know what her definition is, not Neely Fuller's, not somebody else's, not even your own.
Okay, Mr. Fuller and caller, hold that thought. We'll pick it right back up. Just hold that thought. Mr. Fuller, continue, please.
Yes. Love, you want a definition. One of the greatest things that has been overlooked, if not the greatest thing, in all of the dialogue, all of the monologues, everything written, everything presented on television, everything being argued about, when it pertains to things racial, racism, counter-racism, white supremacy, all of these words that are floating around, love, anger, just ask questions. Ask questions about what each one of these terms mean. Just don't say love. Well, everybody's got what we need is love. We hear that over and over again. We need love. We need love. But nobody asking a question, love expressed by doing what? Because it always comes down to the action. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. The action. Not some abstract words just tossed around loosely like most of them are. You want a definition for every word that is used as a key word. Love is a key word. By key meaning somebody keeps talking about it like it's something really important. Well, if it's important, you should be able to tell exactly what a person does and a person loves. I mean in detail, in fine detail. You might have to even take 5 or 6 days explaining it. All of the details that go into what makes love. When people are really loving people, everything and every area of activity should be thoroughly discussed in detail, not just stand up on a microphone and say, well, what we need is love, and everybody love everybody, and wave your hands in there and sing a couple of songs with the word love in it, and then everybody walk off tired and come back and do the same thing next year at the same time. That's not getting anything
Hmm.
We got a key word here in this discussion, and that word is D-O. Do.
Do. Okay.
Yeah, when somebody mentions love, when that lady mentions love, that what black people need to do is get love, then you say, okay, get love by doing what? D-O. We want to get to the doing part.
All right.
And whether you are a man, the lady that's doing the talking, what are you going to do with this thing called love? By doing what? What is exactly you going to do? Start with this minute.
Yes, sir. What's the name of that? What was the name of that lady's caller? That said
Marianne Williamson.
Marianne
Williamson.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your call, sir. Thank you so much. Okay. We are speaking of evidence, what it is and what it is not in the system of white supremacy, racism. Here's a question from Mr. Stovall. He says this, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby, can you ask Mr. Fuller whether he believes that black men are actually living longer, or is this just a myth? I'm finding that a great deal of black men in my circle are dying before the age of 70. In addition, could you ask Mr. Fuller whether he still believes that black people will not be exterminated because white supremacists still need us to supreme over? Is it possible they will systematically exterminate us and then reign supreme over other non-white people?
Well, it's all about non-white people anyway. There's three categories of people according to what I've written. And that is white people, non-white people, and white supremacists. Just three. Rather than the 21 brother that I've heard about.
Yes.
So, the white supremacists, in answer to the other question, that is correct. You can't be supreme over something that doesn't exist. So in order to be supreme over non-white people, you have to have non-white people. So it doesn't make any difference what the shades of color are. People say black people and brown people. That's the term. Now you put in the words again. Black people and brown people. Well, when you look at millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of black people are brown people. A lot of brown people are black people. What's the difference between one shade and another? It's just a shade of black. Because anything that has color is a shade of black when it comes to skin color of people. That's just the way it works. From black people, you can get brown people, light brown people, dark brown people, yellow. Some people say yellow, some people even say red bone. But basically, it's black. From white, you don't do anything but white. And the white supremacists understand that. You just keep getting white color. That's it. And that's what a lot of white people want to preserve. And there shouldn't be a law against that. Shouldn't be a law against anybody being white. Just like there shouldn't be a law against anybody being black. But the white supremacists have said that if you're black, you are automatically a criminal. And your crime is being black. And that's something black people throughout the world have to understand in order to understand white supremacy. You are born a criminal. And your crime that you committed was being born black. That is a crime in the white supremacist lexicon, in the white supremacist philosophy. Being black is an absolute crime. Against what? Against everything that has any decency to it, and anything that's constructive value. Which is why you can go around and destroy anybody who's black, because that's automatically a criminal. That's a worthless person. I mean, in fact, it's not even really a person, like they used to say. It's an animal. Like the character in the movie your godfather said. Sell drugs to animals, to the black people, to the coloreds, because they're nothing but animals anyway. They're not even people. You don't have to give them any regard. They don't matter. Why should they matter? I mean, you kill animals, don't you? You kill squirrels, you kill chickens, you kill cows. You kill black people. You know, in fact, they're not worth as much as a dog. All right? I just alluded to something that a cousin of mine, years ago, World War II, he came home, what he called his home, from the South Pacific after World War II, a soldier. And he walked up to a white man, trying to be friendly. He's happy to be back and whatnot, and didn't get killed over there in Okinawa. So he said, well, how are things going? And he told me this himself, and I was maybe about 13 years old. He said, well, same as usual. White man first, dog next, and then he used the N-word, Negro last. White man first, dog next, and the N-word last. And walked off. And he said that was his greeting back to Arkansas.
Wow.
After fighting for freedom. But the guy told him, the right person, answered him, how are things in that manner, letting him know, hey, the dog comes before you. Any dog, stray dog, whatever.
Wow. TalkTimeAtRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTimeAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And our excellent discussion today is evidence in the system of racism, white supremacy. But at this particular time, 45 minutes after the hour, we have set aside this time for Mr. Fuller to discuss his book. Mr. Fuller, take it away.
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of the basic textbook, the revised expanded edition, and for those who went to 1984 edition, there are still some copies of that. But I recommend the revised expanded edition, 2016, and that's there. And the book is called the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Those words, like all words, don't mean anything until you look at the front pages of the book. The first few pages, it will describe what those words mean and what they're supposed to mean to a person who's reading it. But basically, it's saying that you're supposed to be united in what your goal is, but you are an individual person in how you go about achieving it, because each individual person, circumstances are different. In the 9 areas of activity, you're in different places, you're in different parts of the world. So if you're a person of color, you deal with racism according to what you face every day. And that's what the book is designed to do. To help the individual person when nobody else is around to help. What do you say and what do you do in the 9 areas of activity in confronting racism? That's what the entire book is about. But you can get it by going to producejustice.com. And then there's an additional word guide, since we're talking about words and what they mean, that kind of helps you along in achieving that. Because you do use words every day, and people use words toward you. You should have some idea about what you're saying and what they're saying in order to get things done. Ultimately, it's to help to produce a product called justice. But you got to get rid of racism in order to have justice. Go to producejustice.com. That's how you get the book.
Okay.
Producejustice.com.
Alrighty. Let's see here. We're speaking of evidence as our main topic today. And let's go to the phone lines. Caller number 1, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
How you doing, Mr. Fuller? This is Mr. Ed because I'm out of Cleveland, Ohio. And I would like to show really a little confusion that I have in my mind about your opinion on reparations. Do you believe black people need or are owed, use that word better. Do you believe black people are owed reparations or compensation? If so, in your opinion, what type? And my next question
Wait a minute, hold it. Let Mr. Fuller answer that one, and then you can ask Mr.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, but now the question is raised, and it's being debated all over the place, but the recommendation of the code is, when you say reparations, you just mean repairing what's been damaged. Anything of constructive value on the entire planet. That not only includes people, that includes the environment and everything. Everything that has been damaged needs repairing. It's very simple. It's logical. This is the way you say it. Everything in the known universe that's been damaged by people needs to be repaired by people because they did the damage. So if you invented a thing called racism that damaged people, anybody who was damaged should be repaired. Now, what form will the repair take? Whatever form will be best, which means, according to the code, according to what I've written, you got to get rid of the entire system of white supremacy. That's how you repair that damage. And replace it with what? Replace it with a better system. Because this system is designed to keep producing damage. It's not like 1 or 2 incidents here, 1 or 2,000 incidents. It's the entire system of racism should never have existed. It's a system that's designed to cause damage to people. It gets a lot of things done, but it slaughters people. It throws away people by the millions, generation after generation. So what do you do to repair that damage? You don't come up with a dollar figure or something like that. There's no way to do that. You get rid of that entire system and replace it with a system of justice, which means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help in all areas of activity 24/7. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. But you want the most constructive activity for these people who have been damaged, and for all people as a whole, and see to it that nobody else is ever damaged on the planet. That's a huge project, but that's what it takes. Anything short of that, it's not in the reparations area. You're not repairing.
Okay.
It is done patchwork. Patchwork ain't repairing.
Understood. Thank you for the clearing that confusion up for me on your opinion. My last question, Mr. Fuller, is I was really excited to hear your story about a week ago about you and the family being in that green book. That was a very interesting conversation. And I had one particular question. When it came to that green book, did your progenitors or father ever, did they ever tell you about the people who compiled that list for the green book? And also, were you all as a family ever worried that you that the white supremacists would get a hold of that book and possibly damage any of your businesses as well as other people? And
No, the book was a secret. The white supremacists didn't want it. They wanted black people to know where to go to you drive up at night, and, you arrive on a train, and you're dusty, and you're tired, and you're in a strange town, and the train says, well, this is as far as the train's going to go tonight. And the conductors and everybody says, everybody off, because we're having engine trouble or whatever. So you're stranded there in the town. Now the white people would just look for a sign saying hotel. All right? Most signs have some type of little hotel or whatnot, or some place to stay, a room and house, and they would just go there without ever, missing a beat. But black people, you're in a strange town, back in those days, and you're traveling not only in the south, but in a lot of places in the north. You better know where to go. Exactly. Because you don't wander around in the streets at all. So someone is giving you a little book that says, Mrs. Martha Ann Jones on Elmira Street, on Cherrydale Street, on Williams Road. And so you would ask the first black person, somebody hanging around the railroad station there like that, do you know where Miss Jones is? That's how it usually works, word of mouth. Somebody would offer to take you there, walk you there. Most people don't have cars, so you probably, if it's a small town, you probably have to walk there and go across the tracks. That's another thing. In small towns back in those days, wherever the railroad tracks were, that's where you used to find the black people, because that's where the railroad had property, meaning non people settling on it and whatnot, because it's a lot of noise along railroad tracks, and a lot of smoke, and etc. So you just look which way are the railroad tracks, and you start walking toward the railroad tracks, and you find some little shacks along the tracks. I always call them shack by the track with the room in the back. And that's what the little green book was all about. So the white supremacists, they didn't know not at all, because they know it. Hey, no Negroes on the street, particularly after dark. That means absolute danger.
Okay, well...
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your work.
All right, thank you, caller. Okay, quickly, Mr. Fuller, a question came up. Hello, Mr. Bobby, can you please ask Mr. Fuller, what are the lessons learned in a film called Cool Hand Luke?
Oh, individuality. Most of the movies that I have recommended has to do with the United Independent concept. And Carl Newman and Cool Hand Luke. That's one thing that people noticed about him right away. I mean, the minute that they put him, that he arrived at that prison camp, and that was, he was different. But not different just to be different. He was just different by nature. And he didn't follow it. He wasn't a crowd follower. He had his own way of doing things. And at the end of the movie, the prisoners all talked about Cool Hand Luke, even though he was dead. I mean, they believed in his style of doing things so much that some of them wanted to believe he was still alive, even though that they thought that he had been shot dead. But right up until death, he was an individual. He went his own way. That's what each and every black person on this planet should think about doing. Be your own individual self. You are an individual. Don't be a crowd follower. Period. Just, well, that's what everybody else is doing. I'm going to do it too. And usually it's a whole bunch of stupidity. And that's how we get caught up in things. We don't stop to ask questions about anything. Be the individual that stands back and say, wait a minute. I know the crowd is all saying this and all saying that and whatnot, but does this really make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Follow logic.
Follow logic. Okay.
Follow logic. Don't be a crowd follower. Get out of that.
All right. Gotta leave it.
All these gangs get formed with me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my brothers do.
Okay.
So your brothers may not know what in the world they're doing.
Gotta leave it there, Mr. Fuller. We gotta shut down the first hour, but we gotta stay tuned for the second hour. Talk to him at radio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Stay tuned for the second hour.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. You are now in touch with the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is Radio the Way It Should Be Heard. Today's topic, Wednesday, March the 13th, 2019, is evidence in the system of white supremacy racism. Is there an evidence code, a code of evidence? We're taking your calls and reading your Gmails. 1-877-932-9766 is the number to get in contact with the show. You can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. Mr. Fuller, we're all speaking in code. Follow a code. Evidence, in your opinion, does it have a code that you follow?
Well, some things are evident, I guess. Fire, water, they're self-evident. There's a difference between fire and water, and anybody who has dealt with fire and water has found that out without anybody even telling them, because they exist in the universe. So these things can be said to be self-evident, meaning they are what they are. Fire is fire. Water is water. Sunshine is sunshine. Rain is rain. Dirt is dirt. Dirt is not the same as a leaf, even though a leaf may contain dirt. But they're not exactly the same. A fistful of leaves is not exactly the same as a fistful of dirt or a fistful of air. You can clench your fist, there's air inside of that clenched fist. But when you open your hand from the clenched fist, you don't see any air, but you can have logical reason to believe that air was there inside of your clenched fist, because air is everywhere on this planet. But you can let air get into. There's such a thing as a vacuum where there is no air, but that might not be so self-evident because people have taken all the air out of it. But air is essential, even though there's no evidence of air in some people's minds that you can see. You can see something that's floating around in the air, but you can't see the air. So if you're talking about visual evidence, well, that can be argumentative. But it just depends on who's doing the talking. What is evidence and what isn't?
Okay.
And in the system of white supremacy, the white supremacists for black people, they use to determine what evidence is and what it isn't.
Okay. Let's do this. Let's take this phone call. Line 1? Okay. Line 1, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead with your question.
Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning.
My question is, I'm going to talk to you before about my job situation. There's a board meeting happening tonight, and there's another counselor. He's the only African-American counselor for the entire district. They went ahead and made him resign. So him, and then the entire, some of the other African-American parents want to go to the board meeting and kind of make a scene or, talk to the board. And my question to you is, what would be the most constructive action to do at this board meeting? And do you think that it would even make a difference going to the board and kind of telling them, what happened to us?
It must be something incorrect about my hearing or something, because I really didn't get the gist of your question. Mr. Bobby, do you understand what you said?
I'm going to ask her to ask the question again. What did you say to Mr. Fuller? Could you repeat it?
Okay. Me and this other counselor, who's African-American male, both were discriminated against.
Let me get that first part straight, because your question was kind of wrong. So you said you and some African-American males. Is that what you said?
We're both working for a school district and was discriminated against.
Okay. You and some African-American males working for the school district were discriminated against. And the question is what?
We want to go to the board of director meeting tonight to let them know in a public forum what happened to us. Do you think that this is constructive, and what should we do at the board meeting to get the most constructive result?
What you do at the board meeting is, first of all, the poor wants. What is it that you want? When you go to any meeting with anybody, you want something. People want something all day, every day, all over the planet. So it's just the poor wants, according to the code. You go there saying what you want, what you are there for. You've got to know what you are there for. It's something that you want, evidently. Otherwise, why go? So you say, you tell them what it is you want. Next thing, why you want what you want. Next thing, what is the plan to get it? Well, part of the plan is letting them know what you want. Even if they're going to figure out what the plan is to give you what you want. And the fourth question, what do you expect the constructive result to be? Because the result should be something of constructive value. You don't want any non-constructive result. Why bother? You get non-constructive results everywhere, all day long. All right? So you must be very, very focused about what it is you're going to the meeting for. Lots of people go to meetings, they don't know why they're at the meeting. And it's just a whole lot of going around in a circle. Everybody talking and nobody making any sense about anything. And usually it comes from not being focused. I mean super focused about what it is that you want and why you want it. And if you get it, what the constructive result is going to be. That's it. But you have to be well prepared when you go.
All righty.
And since you are asking for something that you want, try to stay in the question lane as much as you possibly can, and don't make accusations. Once you start making accusations, you're going to get opposition, and that's usually not going to go nowhere. Just turn into a shouting match with everybody screaming, yelling, getting mad, and nothing getting done about what? you are there to get.
Mr. Fuller, can she state, or is it logical for her to state in her reasoning why she was there what happened as to why her and those other African American males, how they were treated, which would not necessarily be an accusation?
Well, what they do is just go there and state what went on.
Okay.
And then ask a question. Stay in the question lane. After you state what went on, say, now this happened. Number one, this happened. Number two, try to list everything by numbers. Number one, this is what happened today or last week or whatever. Number two, this is what happened so-and-so. Because you're talking about things that were done.
Yes.
This is what was done. Number four, this is what was done. Number five, this is what was done. And then when you list everything, go down with a list of things that were done. Then ask a question after you go through your list of things that were done that you think should not have been done, but you don't say that they shouldn't have been done. You just list what was done.
Mm-hmm.
Then, when you finish saying what was done, then you say, should these things have been done? All right? That's your question. And let them answer, and you want all of your answers in writing. And let each person that talks, one person talks at a time, and don't ever move to the second question before you have thoroughly answered the first question, whatever the questions are. Don't move to the second question until the first question has been answered. Otherwise, you're going to get what? More confusion. One thing you don't want in any meeting ever for the rest of your existence on this planet, on the other planet, is confusion. Otherwise, there's no point in having the meeting.
Okay.
If it's just going to turn out to be a shouting match, that's a no-no. And if you stick to this formula, it shouldn't be.
Okay.
You just simply say what was done, and then go through each one of the things that was done and ask the question, should these things have been done? And if so, why?
Oh.
And you want your answers in writing.
Okay.
And you go from there.
Did that answer your question, caller?
Hello?
Okay, maybe
Is she still there?
Yes, it did. Can I have one more question?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. In our district, we have a high rate of suspensions for black students, black male students, to a point to where next year we're going to be taken over by the state. The money that goes, some of the money that goes to African American male students is going to be taken from our district, and the county is going to go ahead and figure out ways how to spend this money. Okay, so moving forward, with them getting rid of most of the effective African American teachers and counselors, I feel that that is some of the reason why they can't deal with the African American students that are there at the school. So my question is, how do I articulate that to the board and let them know, like, they're getting rid of the people who can really connect with these students and I really work with these students, but they're not giving us a chance. They're just pushing us out, and then at the same time, it's affecting our African American students, and they have the highest rate of suspension. So how do I convey that?
Same procedure. See, that's what codification is about. You do the same thing over and over again. Why? Because it's supposed to work. That's why. Otherwise, it's not code. So the procedure is exactly what I said a while ago. Anytime you're talking to anybody, you want something. So what it is, you focus, first of all, you have to get your own mind straight about what it is you want. All right? Then you get your mind straight about what it is you don't want and why. But you put it in the form of a question when you apply, when you raise the issue to people who have the power to get it done. See, we're always talking about doing, not how anybody feels or anything like that. Throw feelings out of it altogether, period. And talk about whether something is correct or something is incorrect. Because there's no such thing as in between. So you just simply ask questions. is happening. I'm talking about putting it on paper. Don't go in there ad-libbing or trying to think off the top of your head. That's a mistake. Have everything written down and read it just like you wrote it. This is happening. This is happening. And by the numbers. And when you run out of numbers, in other words, you cover everything that is going on that you think shouldn't be going on, and then you ask the people that you are talking to, number one, sir, ma'am, should this be the case? This number one. Should this be happening here? Number two, and get all of your answers in writing. And your answers will take, the answers that you get, if you're given any, is going to take everybody right where they need to be. That's codification. That's the codified man of doing everything. Questions and answers. Stick to it.
There you go. TalkTimidRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, politics. And here's three that I'm going to read off for you. A conversation, let's go here. New Money with Drew and Janae. A conversation with Don Carina. And the Quay Morgan Hill Show. All these are an exclusive to TalkTamitRadio.com. And if you haven't visited the website, TalkTamitRadio.com, and under programs, listening and listed the programs, you should, because you will find these programs are very interesting. Or you may find that it's not to your taste. But you're never going to know if you don't go. If you don't go there. Go there. Check it out and see. Not just the compensatory concept with Mr. Fuller, which I think is the #1 show, but that's just my opinion. Go there to the TalkTamitRadio.com homepage. Click on the programs. You'll see a little bio of the people and the date and the time that the show starts. And I think you'll be glad you did. All that it comes from TalkTamitRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, and I am the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And today's topic on March the 13th, 2019, is evidence in the system of white supremacy, racism. As you have just heard, there is an evidentiary code that you have to follow in asking questions to get what you need to get. And with that being said, evidence, let's go to the phone lines. Caller, #1. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Can I be heard? Yes, I hear you. I had a question. Actually, I have two very quick questions. I was introduced to your work around 2012, 2013, and I met my current wife in the year 2008, and I married her shortly after. I have 2 kids with her. She is classified as white. When Obama won, I honestly thought that the system of white supremacy was over, but when I was introduced to your work and I opened my eyes, I started seeing that it wasn't. Given my position, my first question is, what would be the codified response? What would you do were you in my position? And my second
Wait a minute, hold on. Let Mr. Fuller answer that one, and then we can go to your second one.
What you do is do the best you can, like all prisoners of war, because the assumption is that if you're classified as non-white, you are a prisoner of war. You're born in a prison, a real prison. So, when you're in prison, born in prison, trying to follow the prison rules and whatnot, and doing what you're allowed to do, you just do the best you can. So that's what you do. That's what the law of compensation is about, doing the best you can with the circumstances you're given. So since you find yourself in these circumstances, you concentrate on the essentials. What is essential? Try to do justice, because that's what we're ultimately going to be doing anyway, if this world is supposed to turn out to be anything at all that we have been. Because you're dealing with. So you're the person that you are paired off with in these circumstances. You say, well, we're here. We're in these circumstances. They're not anywhere the way that they should be, because the world itself is not anything close to the way that it ought to be on account of this system of white supremacy, and we're in it, and I've made this turn in the road, all right, but we'll concentrate on what we can do, and we can try to guarantee that nobody is mistreated. See, it gets to this one word, really, justice. Guarantee that no one is mistreated, and the other part, guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And you just do that every minute of every day that you're given, like everybody else on the planet, like me and everybody else. That's what I'm supposed to be trying to do with the circumstances that I have. Because nobody is in a situation that they ought to be in. Nobody.
Okay.
Not on this planet in the system of white supremacy. The system of white supremacy does not allow things to be the way that they ought to be.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's why you have to work on getting rid of the system. But you're in that unwieldy situation according to the code, an aggravated situation. It's really not an improvement, even though I used to believe that. I used to believe that black and white people got together and got endured enough and had enough babies together, the race issue would go away. No, the race issue goes away when the white supremacist decides it goes away. So it really doesn't help.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in that situation, you do just like I do and everybody else. Do the best you can with a battlefield situation, because we are all on the same battlefield.
Yes, sir. Okay, what's your second question, caller?
Well, my second question is very quick. I have a supervisor who is African, or, well, he's classified as non-white. And I find that my plant manager often uses my supervisor indirectly to sort of mistreat people classified as non-white, and I was wondering if there was a codified response for that.
Okay.
Because every time I say something that's racist, they always say, well, you have a black supervisor.
Well, never accuse anybody of racism. That's one thing you never do on a job. Ever. Never, don't even talk about race. Talk about justice. And the way you talk about it is what I laid out, if you were listening earlier, to the lady before. Just go and say what is happening. And then, after they answer, after you lay out what is happening, then ask a question, the bottom line question. Should these things be happening? And to try to get your response in writing. All right? But see, the first error is accusing anybody of anything. Because once you make an accusation, you have to prove it. And there's nobody to prove it by, except somebody white in the system of white supremacy. Anybody who doesn't know that has found it out if they tried, particularly on a job. The white supremacists make final decisions on everything. And keep that in mind. Regardless of how many black people do this and do that, the white supremacists make the final decisions on everything, period. It has to do with non-white people. So it's really them who's doing it. So you're rather than make an accusation, you call for what? I call it the 3 I's. Inquiry, investigation, indictment. That's the 3 I's. In a job situation or anything else. Now, you stay in the inquiry lane. Don't move to the investigation. Call for an investigation. That's your inquiry. You're saying, all I'm doing is calling for an investigation. An investigation of whom? You never say who. You always say what. Always direct everything to what is happening and say, should this be happening? And if you put anything in writing, always say that you are doing it outline is given in the code book. I forgot whether it's in the economics or politics, but it gives you a brief outline of how to write something. You don't do a lot of writing. You let your opposition, if there is any, do all or most of the writing. You just make a request. Everything that you do is in the form of a question. Don't make accusations. Just say what is happening, like I laid out to the lady before, and say, put it in the question, bottom line. Should these things be happening? And then you go to the 5th and 14th Amendment in the Northwestern Hemisphere of the Constitution. So you mention that in anything that you write, because everything should be constitutional.
Okay. All righty. Gmail here says, why not Barnes & Noble? This comes from a listener in, I think, Canada. But anyway, it says, can you ask Mr. Fuller, maybe one way to increase book sales for Mr. Fuller, why not approach Barnes & Noble to sell the code book? Put a code book in every Barnes & Noble store. Mr. Fuller needs to get the code book out. Repackaging the code book can be used in an advertisement technique to increase book sales. You can wrap the book with a little title that says racism as a way to circumvent the resistance to the words white supremacy. White supremacy is racism, and racism is white supremacy. You never know. That came from a person, I believe, in Canada that wrote that. What say you to that, Mr. Fuller? Why not Barnes & Nobles?
Well, I have some people looking into that, but down through the decades, and I don't get very much circulation from it. I've tried to use outlets as best I possibly could to help black bookstores, but they're kind of few and far between, and then the profit margin for them hasn't been substantial enough, because things are kind of difficult for people trying to run a bookstore, and I understand that. But the profit margin for the bookstore themselves hasn't been great enough. Now I could increase sales, but I don't want to get too far into a situation where, like when I started out, when I actually wrote the book to start with, I didn't know who to talk to or anything. But there were some white people who even approached. But they wanted to put their spin on it. They wanted to do some editorializing and all. No, absolutely not. Not changing nothing. According to some prescription that people think will just make sales, but I'll lose substance in what I'm trying to do. So if I'm doing it the hard way, well, I'm looking for a better way. And that will be considered for Barnes & Nobles or whatever. But it's all in the details of what the circulation is going to be, whether or not I'm going to have to change anything, because I'm not changing anything that may sound like or look like is heading in the direction of compromising what is being said about replacing the system of white supremacy with justice.
All right, you gotta leave it right. Before we get to the Gmails, let's go to the phone lines. Line number 1, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Hey, good morning. Mr. Fuller, I wanted to ask you, there was recently some articles and some talks about in the next 30 to 40 years, robots completely taking black people's jobs. And it said that the black wealth would go down to zero. Can I have your thoughts on that, please?
Yes, so the question is, what do black people do?
Yeah,
everything is about doing, okay? So what do black people do if somebody says that the jobs that black people have are going to be taken from black people and given to robots by people who have the power to take jobs from black people and give them to robots? Presumably, that would be someone who believes in white supremacy. So the question is, what do black people do if that happens, if I understand the question? have any jobs because the robots do the jobs. So, prison masters, since you are the prison masters, and the jobs that we had were provided by you anyway, what are you going to do with us now about jobs? Are we going to have jobs, or do we need jobs? Or are you going to take care of us without jobs? What are you going to do? Everything comes down to just a two-letter word, do. And you ask the people who have the power to do it. They provide jobs. So a person might be raised, well, do black people try to get their own jobs? You can only get your own job anyway if the white supremacists say you can get your own job. If the white supremacists want to put black people into business right now, every black person on the planet will have a business, a home business, or whatever you want to call it, whatever they arrange. Why? Because they run the prison. We can't forget that. We seem to think, many of us, not all, maybe not most, but too many of us seem to think that we can just walk around on this planet and say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. We keep forgetting we're in a world prison. And you're not going to do anything in the prison yard, meaning the planet Earth, without the white supremacist approval in the situation that we have here right this minute in 2019, March the 13th. That's the deal.
All right.
Now, there are people who will say, oh no, there are a lot of things black people can do and don't have to get no white supremacist approval. I'd like to know what it is and where.
Yes.
Anywhere on the planet. Name a place. I see their will being carried out to the letter everywhere. I don't know of no place where that's not true.
Yes, sir.
And if anybody happens to discover a place, I want to know where it is.
All righty. Let's see, what line am I on it? Line number one. You're on Talktainment Radio with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Hello?
Hello, I'm here.
Oh, hi. Good morning. I have a question that's on a personal level, and I'm sure it can be beneficial to other people. I understand the situation that we're in, but I constantly find myself reacting to negative people at my job, even when I try to be constructive, because I know I shouldn't be non-constructive, but I just seem to keep running into it, and just any suggestions you can offer. I try to be polite or sometimes just not answer the person, but that doesn't seem to be working. So I don't know if it's something on a personal level, suggestions that you may be able to give me. And also the website, I don't know if you guys were aware. I wasn't able to get on. I had to come to YouTube. And the sound just on Mr. Fuller's end, I can't hear you too well.
You mean on the TalkTainmentRadio.com website?
Yes, sir. I couldn't get in. I've been trying, like, when you go to breaks. I never use YouTube. I'm always on Talktainment. So I'm on YouTube now. The site is popping up saying it's unavailable. And this is from when you started at 10. And I have other friends and family that listen, and they called me saying the same thing. So just wanted to make you guys aware.
Okay. We'll have the people look into that. Man, that's not good. Did you get her question before I interrupted that one for that?
Well, I just got the idea or the information. It seems like it's just problems on the job. But the codified response to problems on the job is problems that you have anywhere with anybody. First of all, who is doing what? That's all. It always comes down to just a two-letter word, do. Somebody's doing something. So you just ask questions about what is being done and whether or not it should be done, and if it shouldn't, what can be done to stop it from being done, so that what is being done is the thing that should be done. According to what? According to law, basically the 5th and 13th Amendment in the Northwestern Hemisphere. That covers a whole lot.
Yes,
those two amendments to the Constitution, and according to logic. And you do this by what? Asking questions. What is being done, and whether or not what is being done should be done or should not be done, and why. And you get your answers in writing first before you do anything else. What is being done? Should what is being done be done? That's the next question. Why is it being done? In order to produce what? And have someone with authority, someone with power, answer those questions in writing. And it doesn't have to be lengthy, and the shorter the better. Right to the point. This should be done. The reason this should be done is 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? And the result of doing what should be done is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the kind of answer you should be looking for. So it won't be any what? Confusion. And you don't have arguments with anybody of any kind. Just ask questions. And don't try to help the people with the answers. That's real important to remember. If a person is trying to answer a question that you ask, don't break into their answer and start telling them what your opinion is of their answer. Let them give their answer. That's why you ask. You ask for their answer, not yours, and have them put their answers in writing. Now, this method I have found from experience always works. And doing anything else other than that doesn't work very efficiently. It's the wrong way around.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, caller, and thank you for that information that you gave us about this site here. I don't know what's going on, but we'll have somebody working that. Thank you very much. Okay, TalkTameItRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTameItRadio.com app to your cellular, to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Today being March the 13th, 2019. Our show topic is evidence and the code that follows and goes with evidence. So we take your calls and read your Gmails. But it is at this time that we have designated that Mr. Fuller to talk about his book. So, Mr. Fuller, please speak about your book.
Go to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. And earlier somebody asked me about the job situation and what you say and all like that. And I said something about it might be under economics or politics, but also it might be under labor. I think that's where I put that. Where there's a sort of a form letter that you can write. It doesn't, I think it's just about a paragraph long, because you don't want to do a whole lot of writing on a job situation. Why? Under compensatory logic, because when you do a lot of writing, your opposition will go through every line of what you wrote, and they will find something out of 200 or 500 or 600 things that you said. They will pick out one line, and they'll destroy you with what you said. Because the more talking you do, the more jeopardy you're putting yourself in. You get the person who is opposing you, whomever that person may be, opposing what you're trying to do, and you should be trying to do something constructive. Otherwise, you don't say anything anyway. But everything you do is supposed to be constructive. So stay in the question lane. Stay away from making statements of any kind. I don't care what the statement is. I don't care how it looks to you. Statements can get you in trouble. Ask questions. Usually in those jobs, they tell you from day one. Now, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask questions. We like questions around here. That's how we make the firm work. That's, we like for our employees to be free to ask questions. So you do that. You ask questions. In fact, when you say anything, you should try to put it in the form of a question, because then someone can answer you in writing, and then you go through each line of what they wrote and see if it's leading in the direction the way it should go. And if it doesn't seem like it's going in that direction, don't argue about the answer. Ask another question about the answer. Stay in the question lane. This is real important. All day long, on every job, any job that you have, try to put any statement that you get ready to make. Stop and think. How can I put this statement I'm fixing to make in the form of a question? Now, the code book doesn't go into a lot of details on this, but it goes into some in labor about the job situations, because I'm getting a lot of questions recently about that. And so I have found from experience and observation that it works best. Doesn't work perfectly, but it works best of anything else I've ever thought of, or anybody else I've ever talked to who went at trying to solve a problem on a job. If you're the person who is at a disadvantage, stay in the question lane and get your answers to the questions in writing. And don't argue about the answers that you get. Just study the answers that you get. Because if somebody's up to doing something they shouldn't be doing, it's going to show up in the way that they answer in writing. Sooner or later, they're going to write something that shouldn't have been written, explaining the answer to the question that you asked. I found that usually happens. But you can go to the textbook and get a lot of information about what you as an individual can do about solving problems about everything, presumably. Some suggestions. The ones that don't make sense, don't pay any attention to them, just gloss over them. The ones that do make sense, try to use them, because they're supposed to work. Go to producejustice.com and get the basic textbook for victims of white supremacy. Producejustice.com.
Okay. By the way, Michael P. Washington says that he knows you very well, and I guess you and him have had several conversations, including ones with Dr. Francis Wellesley. And I didn't know that he knew you, and we had a long discussion about you last evening. But anyway, Michael P. Washington. All righty. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please. State your question.
Yes, can I be heard?
I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for taking my call. I would like to first say I do have the word guide and the code book. I'd like to thank you for your work. It's very constructive. My question is this. I've heard you speak from time to time about your personal experiences, and I would say that hearing those experiences sometimes kind of solidified some of the things that are put in the book and the word guide. So how do you feel about maybe writing a book or a blog or something of the sort where you share some of your personal experiences from your life with people in general, because like I said again, it solidifies a lot of the things that you put in the code book. Thank you for taking my question.
Well, I thought about that and thought about it, and I thought that the best thing to do is do as little of it as possible in order to get people to pay attention to the one thing that I want people to pay attention to more than anything, because that's what I pay attention to, and that is a thing called logic. Logic meaning cause and effect. Cause and effect. Everything has a cause, and presumably everything that has a cause has an effect. So I say that if people just go through the entire universe studying what causes something and what the result is of whatever that cause was, that will take everybody right where they need to be, whether they want to go there or not. It takes everybody right where. It's called logic. It came with the universe. So in answer to the question, I try to de-emphasize the personality, because people people have a tendency to say, Fuller's code. Fuller doesn't have a code. Fuller has remarks about a code that is in the universe. The universe operates in a codified manner, in a logical manner. Codification just means logical, cause and effect. So if you study the causes of things and the effects of things, you're not following people, not Fuller or anybody else.
Okay.
I hear a voice in the background. It sounds like mine.
It probably is yours.
Right.
Okay, we can fix that. Okay. All righty.
But I try to de-emphasize the personality code, because when I know it makes points sometimes when people talking about their personal experiences, I know, drama and whatnot. That's why I refer to movies, really, so that you can look at the characters in a movie and learn from movies, because these are universal principles. That's why I say that black people should be trying to be not what you might call historic, strong black people as a goal. No, be universal man and universal woman, in tune with the universe. Not just in tune with your blackness, that's too abstract. Be in tune with the best that there is in the entire universe, so that you can function with clarity and in a constructive manner everywhere that you go, any time of day or night, in the known universe. That should be our ultimate goal.
Okay. All righty. Let's take this last phone call. Go ahead, caller. You're on. You got to make it quick. We've only got about 4 minutes.
Yes, hello, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. This is Mr. Walker from Pennsylvania again. I have one question about environmental factors on the workforce, because it says on the area for labor on page 138 of the compensatory code book, because I hear a lot of people talking about it. It says, during the existence of white supremacy, racism, non-white people are most often put into situations where they are greatly harmed by the presence of environmental error factors. And I was wondering what's the compensatory way to avoid being affected by that. And I also have a VGQ. It's not only the website that's down, it's also the app also that's down. The app is also giving troubles also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fuller, in the remaining 2 minutes.
I didn't get the second question, but to the first question about environmental error factors, that's a term that I made up when I was on the job. I didn't have a term for it, so in the compensatory manner, under the United Independent Code system, see, you make up terms that fit the situation. So I made up a term called environmental error factors. And what you do is just list them. And here again, the question thing. You don't say that it's an error. You ask, are these errors? Just put as a heading on a sheet of paper, environmental error factors, then put question mark behind it. Environmental error factors, that's you put it in the form of a question right out of the gate. Environmental error factors, question mark. And then list things that are happening on your job, like, things handling some type of chemical or something like that, or a door is in a place where you don't have adequate lighting, and every time somebody goes in there, they bump into things and things fall down on them, or something like that. Just point out the things. Just list all of these things, all right? Or something that somebody's doing, all right? It seems to be too much of a load for somebody to carry, or something. They're giving you giving things to carry. And is this a safety factor, Is this an environmental error factor? And so you just cite, just enumerate. It's best to put things by the numbers. That makes it simple. Number 1, in section number 4, there is no lighting, no ceiling lamp. Should there be one? See, put it in the form of a question. See, and just go down the list just like that. And the list can be as long as you want it to be. It might be just 15 things. It might be 200 things. But just ask questions. Put it in the form of a question. This is a situation. Should it be this way? Should it be this way? of your answers, ask for your answers to be in writing.
In writing, exactly.
Right. And when you settle those answers, I mean, something in those answers is going to is going to alert everybody. I'm going to tell you that.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we've come to the end of the show, so all the callers, sorry about that. You waited a little bit too late to call. But anyway, thanks.